There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Well, hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Friday Reads. So, I am exhausted because I decided that come hell or high water, I was going to film my Friday Reads in the bedroom. The lighting is just so much better in here. I'd like filming at my desk with the books in the background and, you know, the mic works great, clamped to the desk right in front of my mouth. But I never am happy with the lighting. I hate the lighting in the living room. Whereas the lighting in the bedroom is just much more, well, maybe flattering, but certainly it's just better. It's just, I like filming here. But with my current mic, well, even the old mic, with the clamp thing that extends to come right up to my mouth, you need something to clamp it to, something heavy enough that will hold the clamp and hold the microphone. Well, the microphone I have now is a lot lighter than the old one, but I just am at a loss as to, there's no bedroom furniture in here close enough. Well, there's no bedroom furniture really. We have got plastic, everything in here that contains clothes or is our bedside table are all made of plastic, and there's nothing to clamp to. I have tried everything, but one of the plastic drawers, I'll show you the picture, it's right beside the bed. I'll crop out the sections of the floor that are covered with dirt, but and it kind of does the job, but every time I touch it, it falls off, or then I gotta get the power source into the microphone once it's screwed onto the thing, and I can't see well enough, and then that finally works, and then it falls off the clamp, and I have to redo the clamp, and then it's easy to touch the setting. There's two settings, one is for front voice and one is for surround sound or whatever, and I can't, the symbols are too small, I can't see them. So I have to do a little test video changing the setting to get the best setting. It's like, we finally got all that done and now I'm tired, I need a nap. Isn't that fascinating? Well, he's having a nap. Here's the week in review. Set in Scotland by a German writer and translated into English. The Peacock by Isabel Bogdan, and I attended the book launch on Zoom of this, translated from the German by Annie Rutherford.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm very, very, very happy to be here. I am an avid reader and watcher of your show, so this is quite an honor for me to be here.
Which shocks the hell out of me, so thank you. You have given me some very kind words as we've been setting up this interview, and I hope that you will become a regular guest on my channel from here on in.
I look forward to on that, and then we can talk about some African literature. There is a lot that is going on this side, on the continent actually, but especially in the southern part of it. It's we have a kind of a new revival of an African literature.
I've had a really fantastic reading week, so I have lots of good books to tell you about. As far as we can see, Kenji and I are still on for going to Canada for Christmas, so there's no news about that. So let's get to the books. I was hoping to finish 5, but I did finish 4, and so a lot of these have been not hanging around, but I've taken my sweet time. I'm ready to talk at length about 3 of them, so that will be basically my Friday Reads. It may not end up, well, I'm going to allow myself to go on for quite a while, because that's all I have to say today, other than the one book that I've started. In fact, why don't I start with the book that I've started? I don't have much to say about it yet. It was that Irish novel about Christmas. It's called The Christmas Tree by Jennifer Johnston. And I haven't read very much. I have to read the first half by tomorrow or the next day. I've read maybe 40 pages. So yes, it's exactly as I explained. It's about a woman who has lived most of her adult life outside of Ireland. I don't know where, maybe just London, but maybe other places farther afield. Her terminal illness is not identified. She had just become a single mother. She hadn't told the father that he was fathering her child, and it was a one-night stand. And then she had the baby, and within a few weeks or months, she found out she had a terminal illness. So she has a very young baby. The father is not in the picture. She has sent him a letter to his London address, but I believe he was Italian or something. So she hopes he gets the letter because he wants to pass the child on to him now that she's dying. And she comes home to her sister, with whom there has not been a lot of love lost between them, to die. So it's a somber tale. I think I like it. I'm not sure about the writing yet, but I haven't read enough to judge particularly. It's holding my interest. So, The Christmas Tree. And I love the fact that it's really sad because happy Christmas stories are like fingernails down a chalkboard for me until about 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and then I'm okay. What's that lovely black and white Christmas movie with Jimmy Stewart? This Is Your Life or something? I do love that movie, but you couldn't pay me to watch it before about 6:15 p.m. on Christmas Eve. And then after Boxing Day, no way. So this one is not sappy, at least not yet. I am tentatively optimistic about it. The first book I finished this week was The Old Man and His Sons by Heðin Brú, a Faroese writer, and this was as Faroese a novel as I think ever has been published. I won't do a full review. What I will do, I'm going to talk about it for quite a few minutes here, because I have the time. And I'm going to point you to Eric Carl Anderson's review on Lonesome Reader, and especially his review is great. And he has embedded on that webpage a video of his trip with some friends to the Faroe Islands, which is just fabulous. And that landscape, that backdrop is very vivid in this novel. This was a madcap, crazy, absolutely fascinating novella about an old man and his wife and their 11 children, although we really only the youngest one, who is a bit developmentally delayed or something. He's not a young man, but it seems like a very young man because of whatever has happened to him, or whatever his neurological, whether he had brain damage, I'm not sure. The other sons and their wives are more in the background, but oh my god. So I told you that it opens with a really gory whale hunting scene, and then we never see another scene like that. At the end of that whale hunting day, the old man, Kettle, had a few too many drinks, because there was a sense of festivity in the air. There was enough food for the winter, or food for the year, or whatever, but with all these whales. And I gotta put this book down. Even though it's a small little book, my arm is sore. He rather tipsily bid in the auction for all the meat for far too much whale meat than he could afford, and that he needed. But for whatever reason, again, there's a lot of mores about things you do and don't do on the island, and it led to some fascinating discussions. By the way, this was a buddy read with Roz of Scallydandling about the books, and we talked about the stereotype that because of the insularity of island life, islanders, whether it's in Canada off the west coast or the east coast of Canada, and she said it's basically the same kind of stereotype, and not only a stereotype, that islanders tend to be an odd lot, and these people are just batshit crazy, most of them. And so he's stuck with this bill that he's going to have to pay within a month or two for all this whale meat. And that's the opening premise of the novel. How is he going to pay for it? What's he going to do with all this whale meat? And he has all these adult ungrateful children, and they're really spoiled ungrateful grandchildren, and they come and just help themselves to the meat. And there's a neighbor who is almost manic in his religiosity, but he's also known as the island's crook. Like, he's always stealing stuff from his neighbors and all swindling people and being kind of like a trickster figure. That was Roz that supplied that word, and that's perfect. And so many other neighbors and various little escapades that happen. And I read most of this novel with my jaw on the floor, because I just couldn't believe these things were happening. I did not feel an emotional connection other than shock and amusement, because it's actually very funny, a lot of it. And the very ending is moving, and I'm not going to give away the ending, but I didn't really feel emotionally invested in anything. It was a 4-star read for me. But otherwise, what an absolutely fascinating novel. And apparently the people of the Faroe Islands voted it the best novel about the Faroe Islands ever written. It was published in the original Faroese in 1940. And I don't think I mentioned the translator. I am a little bit sleepy and played out from all my microphone foibles, but it's still holding there, people. Translated from the Faroese by John F. West. I really recommend it. Like I say, it's not an emotionally, I didn't fall in love with the characters, but I was amused, shocked, and delighted by them, and it's quite a wild ride. And mostly because I'm just getting ready to go home, and I'm just not going to have time to do a full review, because otherwise this book is very deserving of a full review. The memoir Country Girl by Edna O'Brien I finished yesterday. Oh, I love this so much. It might be my very most favorite memoir I've ever read. 5 stars. And as I said this was a buddy read with Sonia of An Enthusiastic Reader, and as I said to her in my final check-in just yesterday, what I loved about this memoir was that it was the antithesis of what I hate about memoir, which is me. It's all about me and my feelings and my trauma. And I'm not disparaging people's trauma, but I can't stand that kind of life writing. I hate it so much. This was populated by the people in Edna O'Brien's life, including so many 1, 2, or 5-page anecdotes about people she met only once and didn't even know their name, but because of, I guess, her personality, she drew out their life story and she included them in this book. So this is it's as good as her fiction, and it's maybe that's what I need to do. Only read memoirs by literary types, because this was an absolute delight. I did learn a lot about her life. And there was no navel gazing. She would include little snippets of experience or observation, often in the form of what somebody told her about herself, but she wouldn't navel gaze about it. It would just be there and you'd carry on. So it just raised all kinds of questions. Like one of the things that's in this book that she where she just alludes to the fact that somebody, I forget if it was a friend or a stranger at a literary reading, asked her why she was so hard on her mother in her writing. And she didn't comment on it, but it's like, well, I remember the mother figure in the Country Girls trilogy. Doesn't come off all that well. Well, actually, doesn't stay in the story very long now that I think of it. But apparently, the mother figures in a lot of her fiction didn't come off very well, and she just puts that in there and carries on, and she's more likely to tell you about the friends she met or the dinner party she had with that perceptive eye that just goes so deep into each and every experience or each little anecdote that some hotel maid tells her about her life, that this was just glorious. I loved it so much. There's a long chapter about her time in New York. She didn't live there for a continuous period, but she went there for a couple of months or a couple of weeks at a time for many years, and that chapter is full of anecdote about all the famous people. Now, she met a lot of famous people in the UK too, obviously, and I kept bracing myself for something that would verge onto the side of name dropping. And I mean, name dropping is a very subjective thing. If you are Edna O'Brien, you meet a lot of famous people, and is she not supposed to talk about them? There's nothing like a kiss and tell kind of quality to any of the revelations that are here. So Jackie Kennedy was one of her close friends. And there's quite a bit about Jackie Kennedy Onassis in the book that was absolutely fascinating, because I find her to be fascinating. I had no idea they were friends. And Hillary Clinton, a little bit about her, and just all these Irish and British writers and actors. She does recount in quite a lot of detail a one-night stand she had with a famous actor, although he wasn't that known to me. If I looked him up, most of you would probably have heard of him. But it doesn't feel like a kiss and tell thing. It's actually quite touching. As a newly divorced woman, and a beautiful, very sexy woman Edna O'Brien was, and I would argue still is. She doesn't talk a whole lot about her writing, and in fact, the things that are in here about her writing are self-deprecating, or certainly nothing that you would think of as being egotistical. She talks about several failures she had as a screenwriter, and where she was humiliated by famous film directors, John Huston. even though they were friends, but that he would berate her and make her feel like a piece of shit. And she writes about that. She doesn't write so much or dwell on the glories of her literary career. So, no, this was just pitch perfect and absolutely delightful. Lots of really vivid descriptions of Ireland and Irish politics and all time of troubles. Everything is, all that kind of stuff is in here too. I see I started this on July 1st and I finally finished it yesterday. A National Crime, the Canadian Government and the Residential School System, 1879 to 1986, by John Milloy. This is the work of history if you want to learn about Canada's crime, the residential school systems. There have been a lot of really important first-person accounts by Indigenous peoples, which he references. This was published in 1999. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission about the residential school genocide, crime against humanity, wasn't for a decade or so after, but I am quite sure that the historical scholarship in this book served as a base on which that inquiry proceeded. This just ripped my heart out. It's the most, it's right up there with that other work of Canadian genocidal colonial history that I read as a buddy read with Jay Shea a couple of years ago. I can't remember the name of it, but here's the GIF. Just indicting Canada and its government and its bureaucracy for devising in the 19th century, even before 1879, quite a long time before 1879, the groundwork for this residential school system in which Indigenous children were stolen from their parents and moved far, far away from them to a boarding school where they were taught by religious perverts and sadists, and this went on for more than a century. And that is a blunt summary of the book. The granular detail I needed to know, and I'm going to continue to read on this topic because it's really the only thing that's important to me about Canada's history, because everything that might be positive about Canada is completely cancelled by the fact that we let this happen. There's a lot of it that's dry. It's about ministerial memorandums and minutes of meetings among bureaucrats and inspectors' reports, but it is in fact not dry because it is the record of a genocide. And I don't know how to say any much more than that, but I do plan to do a full review because it's one of the most important books I've ever read, and I think essential reading for Canadians, especially those that, cling to bullshit ideas about what a wonderful country Canada is, because Canada is anything but. And finally, and I'm not going to talk about this because I have a Zoom chat with Nell of Gunpowder, Fiction and Plot tomorrow, but I finally finished The Bonesetter's Daughter by Amy Tan. So I'm not going to give you even an inkling, not even with my facial expression, about what I thought of this. And I don't think I'm going to have time to edit and publish that chat that I'm going to have tomorrow night with Nell until maybe the new year, but stay tuned. So that is my Friday reads. Thanks for watching.